Hi, live again. It's been a couple months since I decided to do one of these, but I've been listening now for the past number of weeks. The Democrats demanding that Joe Biden, the moment he gets into office, sign a bill that will pay off student loan debt. And to pay off that student loan debt, we're going to use the taxpayers' money. Now, this is taxpayers who the vast majority of which never had a student loan, or if they did, have paid off their student loans. So there's one inequity in this. I'm also confused as to how you can say that we should do this because it'll help stimulate the economy. These loans aren't being paid off as it is. So it's not like people are paying these loans and therefore don't have the money, or can, if we pay them off, we can then use that money for other things. But why is that more vital, especially during a pandemic? Why is paying off student loan debt more vital than paying off a farmer's loan for needed equipment, or a trucker's loan for their rig, or a family's mortgage for their home? Why are the taxpayers going to bail out lenders, the banks, yet again? Why are the banks, universities, and students putting no skin in this pot? Now remember, there are three people involved in this debt situation. Those people are the banks, the students who borrowed the money, and the universities who talked them into needing that money and deciding that they needed to go for more and more and more education. By the way, universities who have grossly inflated the cost of attending their universities far beyond cost of living wages or raises for the last 3 or 4 decades. Now, those are the three that are involved in this. Those are the three that are going to be paid off with taxpayer money. And yet, none of those are going to have any skin in this game. The only people that will have skin in the game are you and me and all the American taxpayers. Now, I want you to think about this. How can another bank bailout be justified when we have families that are struggling and could lose their homes? They've already lost jobs due to COVID. The students aren't putting the money into the economy. They aren't paying this. They are not stimulating the economy. The only thing this will do is pay off banks again. We already bailed them out once. And what did we get for that bailout? Nothing. As a matter of fact, those banks actually gave bonuses to their employees, their higher ups and their employees. Notice that none of the plans talk about fixing the problem. It's just give the money out. So therefore, they're willing to give at least $50,000 per student, and we're just going to have the problem down the road, and then we'll have more bailouts. Here's the deal. Democrats are doing two things in this. First of all, when they pay off these student loans, when they get the president-elect to do this, they're going to be paying back the banks. And the banks are one of the biggest contributors to the Democratic Party. So they're going to pay off people who pay them. And the next thing they're doing is they're paying off the debts of a whole new group of voters who are going to be beholding to them. No, no. We need to get somebody who has enough backbone to stop this. We need to find people in Congress who will stop this. We do not, taxpayers should not have our pound of flesh in the fix of the student loan discussion. Who should? The institutions, the lenders, and the students. No one else. Here's how we can fix this that isn't going to cost us money. Okay? First, do not repay loans. Second, do not expect taxpayers to bail out the students who receive loans, or the banks who approve loans, or the institutions who push for the loans to be given. Continue the suspension of student loan payments through at least the end of June 2021 in recognition of the problems caused by the COVID crisis. Number 4, do not permit any interest to be added to student loans for this COVID period, January 2020 through June of 2021. Number 5, include all student loans in these programs, which would include Sallie Mae, not just the bank loans. Demand those responsible for this mess each put some skin into the game. The institutions that took the payments from these student loans must refund 10 to 20% of the loan amount to the lenders to come directly off the principal of the student loan. Therefore, the schools will be putting some of their skin into this deal. Okay? So you understand that if Harvard University received X number of dollars in student loans, and those student loans aren't being paid off, 10%, 10 to 20% of those loans have to be paid back to the lenders. Number two, lenders must rescind all accumulated interest, late fees, associated fees, anything they've charged from January 2020 to June of 2021. So lenders are putting some skin in the deal. Number three, lenders must reduce interest rates by 50%, including going back to the initial loan date. Let the lenders start to put skin in the deal. Number four, students will be required to pay back the loans after the interest reduction and after removal of COVID-era interest, penalties, and fees. Students signed a promissory note to repay and must be held responsible to meet that promise to pay. So students get some skin in the deal. Now that'll take care of this right now without we, the taxpayers, funding this. Okay? How are we going to fix the system in the future? Here we go. Number one, priority for loans will go to students attending trade schools, community colleges, fully state schools, not affiliated or associated, and historically black colleges and universities. Number two, loan interest on student loans may never exceed more than 2% above the U.S. prime rate. Number three, no loan interest will be applied until the payback period begins. Instead, banks may only apply an amount to cover the lender's cost of administration of the loan until the repayment starts. This way, you won't have double the amount that you borrowed 4 years later because they've been charging interest since the first loan amount was signed. Number four, private institutions can use their massive endowments to set up and administer their own student loan programs. Look at Grove City College as an example. And number five, establish a list, a very distinct list of majors that can qualify for student loans based on current needs of the economy. The banks, universities, and students need to be held responsible, not the American taxpayers. If the taxpayer is going to bail out any debt, how about helping farmers, not corporate farmers, by reducing their mortgage or equipment debts? How about reducing small business debt? Anybody who has businesses employing less or 100 or less hourly employees. Did you wonder this? We're worried about paying a bank back, bailing them out yet again, and yet during COVID, small businesses are getting loans from the government and may have to pay them back to try to stay afloat so that there are jobs when we're out of this. Now, here's something I want you to consider. The top 10 universities in the United States, the top 10, have a combined endowment of $200 billion. $200 billion in endowments. That doesn't count the money that they get from various federal programs. And that's just the top 10. So universities quite well can have some of the skin in this game since they're the ones who are getting this money. The next thing I want you to consider is this. In the last couple weeks, 2 college football coaches, one at Auburn and one at South Carolina, were fired. They were fired and they had to be paid off of their contract. So Auburn University fired their football coach, their head football coach, and are going to be paying him $22 million to not work. In South Carolina, they fired their head football coach, and they're going to pay him $13 million to not coach. That doesn't count monies that's going out to Illinois, Southern Mississippi, Utah State, Vanderbilt, Southern Alabama, University of Louisiana Monroe, Arkansas State, Arizona, and anybody else who gets fired over the next couple of weeks. What also isn't included in this is their tens and tens and tens of assistant coaches who are going to be gone because the new head coach won his own staff, and therefore the universities will have to pay them too. If universities can fire a football coach and pay them $22 million not to coach, they are quite capable of putting skin in the game so that taxpayers don't have to. Do you understand this? We won't even get into the fact that Division I coaching salaries are absolutely ridiculous. Why the Division I schools don't all get together and say, hey, look, maximum pay for a head football coach, $2 million a year. Are you telling me that if a guy who wants to be a football coach won't coach for $2 million, he's going to say, oh, that's it. Forget it. If I don't get $8 million a year, I'm not coaching, because it's so easy to go get an $8 million a year job as a football coach someplace else. Plus, we also know that all the sponsors and all the supporters of the university will make up the difference anyways. Let them. Okay. But we're being hosed yet again. The American taxpayers are being hosed yet again. We can't get the Congress to send money out to people who are having trouble putting food on their tables, who are having trouble paying their rents during this COVID crisis. But they will talk about the first day that Joe Boy is in office, we're going to pay off student loan debts. No, we aren't. Everybody, get a hold of everybody you know, get a hold of every congressman you know from all the states and tell them, stop it. We're stopping the insanity. You're finally going to listen to the taxpayers. And I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.